Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 7 of this amazing hangathon, where we are walking you through creating your own sales process, starting with finding your sales hook, into having your strategy, then finding free traffic and what's the difference between free traffic and paid traffic, and then to your 30-day calendar, which if you haven't seen that, go watch that hangout. And finally, now we are actually diving into the heart of this, and we are breaking down exactly how you can write a convincing sales letter step by step with the accelerator. And we're doing all of this with the top copywriter, Jon Benson. Hey, Jon.
Hey, Yvette, how are you doing?
You're
Thanks.
awesome.
We had about a minute before we went on. I'm like, my dog attacked my face, so I actually literally put makeup on my nose. I don't wear makeup in case anyone wonders, but we literally had like my dog just attacked my face, and we have a 7-month-old puppy that's the size of a freaking horse, so it's he likes to play. So for some reason we lost your image,
No, no,
Yvette.
no. So I actually, guys, I wanted to share this with you before we get started. And I saw this today on my Google Plus stream, and it just struck home because of everything that we're doing here. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And we are here and we are giving you a shot with one of the best copywriter ever and his team that's working for him under him knowing his strategies. And so the question that you should be asking yourself today as you're watching all of this is this going to be a shot that you're not going to take? Is your life going to be exactly the same as it's been up until now, or is today the day that you are changing everything and starting to see similar results to what Jon and his team has been getting from his software? And before we dive into that, Jon, how many hours are you going to be spending next month talking to all the people that bought yesterday?
Let me just say thank you to everyone who gave your trust to me. Money is on the third tier of my importance. Trust is at the very top. So trust is awesome. Respect is right there underneath that. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. So I'm going to be talking to a lot more people than I thought I would be talking to. And in case you're wondering how that's going to happen, and in case I would cover two things real quick. Number one is we had a lot of orders come in after midnight Pacific Standard Time, maybe because you guys just didn't get the email. So if it came in within an hour or two after that time and you didn't get the email, just email support and say, yeah, I really did try to get in on that, and we'll take care of you. After that, you missed it. So sorry, but hey, don't worry, because today I have yet another very
Amazing.
valuable, worth $1,000, real time, not kidding, fast action bonus for you guys. Every day we're gonna go. It's gonna tick down. There's gonna be more and more. In other words, yesterday was the prime one. That's the big one. Next one is it's pretty freaking close. I got to be honest with you. So I'm gonna reveal that at the end of the workshop today, and I call this a workshop. It's actually a hangout. And the other thing I just want to say is for everyone that wanted the modality marketing handbook, I'm going to turn that over to you, Fat. Let you know how we're going to deliver that. Your comments on Accelerator were freaking amazing. I read like 80% of them, and after that I was like, man, I mean, there's so much desire and want for that. So we're going to follow up with you guys on that to make sure that you get what you need, but also give you the book that we promised you, which is going to help you a lot. So, Yvette, how are we going to give that to them? Because there's a ton of them.
There
So,
are a ton of you, and sadly, it's very difficult to just send each and every one of you a private message. So we're going to do that in a group. Right at the bottom of this page, you're going to see a little button that says Add to Circles. You're going to see the Accelerator's Google Plus page. Simply follow that page, and tonight, after everybody has followed and watched the replay, we're going to add you all. We're going to follow you back and send a message to all of you on Google Plus with a link to where you can download the book. So follow the page, and we will get in touch with you. We just don't have all your emails, and we don't have all your contact information. And some of you, we don't know who you are because we can't see your faces on your Google Plus. So just follow the page. We'll follow you back, and we'll send you the link. And another thing, we are still in our competition, guys. We are still sharing and talking, and the prize, the big winner of this sharing competition, is still going to be big, even though we're going down in the daily prices. The first place is still going to be a big prize that you want to go for. So continue sharing, continue talking about us, continue participating, because all of that, you might really enjoy the first prize. I don't know. So should we
Yeah,
get started?
I decided to make the it's going to be first, second, and third. So that's going to be number one, number two, number three. Anyone that gets in the top three gets the same thing. You all get it at once, and it's extremely valuable. So you might want to jostle yourself up to the top three. Awesome. So let's dive into the content, and in fact, you may want to mute me again, just so that there's not the echo that we're having. So today is step 2 of the VSL formula, and like we did yesterday, I really advise you to get out your worksheet that you should have right in front of you. If you don't have the worksheet, take copious notes, scribble fast and furious, because I'm going over not just the step, because the step is step 2, the vital connection. Okay, goodbye. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually tell you every little step underneath the steps and what you need to do. Now, I want to make this very clear. Not every single one of these steps is necessary for every VSL ever written. For example, if you have a product or if you have a service, you might not have a really long nightmare story. We talked about that yesterday. Your nightmare story might be very, very short. At the end of this, you'll see again my own VSL for Accelerator, and you'll see that the nightmare story is not about me at all. It's actually about you. And the nightmare story is very short. It's just extraordinarily, what's the word I'm looking for? Blunt. It's very, I love going for the jugular in the coolest way possible. And a lot of people, by the way, thanks for the comments from the copywriters out there for the message there. Yeah, it was fun to write. But so don't worry about having to cover everything. But it's a great exercise to do. So I'm going to go through every step as if you're going to cover every step, and a lot of VSLs do. For like ebooks and stuff like that, they cover every single one of these steps. I'd rather you have too much information than whittle it down than not have enough. Is that fair? Everybody good with that? If you're good with that, I'm going to share my screen just like we did yesterday, and you're going to be looking at the Accelerator software just like you did yesterday. And we've already gone over the get started, so if you missed that, go back to day 6, that's yesterday. We've already gone over step 1, the snap suggestion. Now we're at step 2, the vital connection. So what is the vital connection? This is the state of rapport that you need to build with your audience. And rapport is so very essential. The higher dollar your product or service is, the greater your rapport really needs to be, unless your reach, your advertising reach, has exceeded your grasp. So, in other words, if there's like if you buy Salesforce.com, for example, a lot of people have word of mouth for Salesforce, and I think it's like 25 grand or something like that. It's expensive software. I could be wrong, so no one tell me too much that I'm wrong. I don't know, but there's a lot of expensive software out there that has a lot of reach. You're probably not in that category. I'm not in that category. So we want to make sure that we build rapport. And rapport is built using the following steps. The very first step is what I call the modest introduction. Notice when I click here, it does pull up the tutorial video, just like every single slide will. It pulls up sample copy that you would just click and point. You can literally pop that copy into there, and we keep adding sample copy to this every single month, every single year. We keep adding more and more copy. So the bottom line is we only take copy from video sales editors that we know work, or copy that we know works in certain places. So that's the trick of getting copy. Sometimes you'll see 30 different copy samples. Sometimes you'll see 4, because sometimes there's just not a better way to say that than 4 things. It might not be a proven way. So your very first thing is a modest introduction. Now I'm going to tell you a funny story about modest introduction, and then I'll tell you what it means. This morning we accidentally sent out an email that had hi first name, and it had some of you got this, and it literally said first name in all caps, and then it went on to go into the email about today. And we noticed it literally a minute after we sent it out. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, this is number 1, always proof your emails. Travis did not proof the email this morning. And number 2, we are suffering from hangover for sure. I mean, I got 4 or 5 hours of sleep last night, answering a lot of people's questions on here. We're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. So when I write an email, a lot of times I'll start, hey, first name, just note to myself to put the first name field inside the email thing. But so that's a very bad modest introduction, I guess you could say. If I'm introducing myself, I wouldn't say, hi, first name, how are you, right? Bad. On the other hand, it's a freaking mistake. So a guy emailed me and said, if you want to be taken seriously as a marketer, I'm like, dude, are you freaking kidding me? I'm already taking, I'm life and death heart attack serious taken as a marketer. You can ask any one of the people that I've helped make millions of dollars, but it's a freaking mistake. That being said, it's a bad mistake, and when I get it, I get those emails from sometimes I'm like, it's like a form field. We don't use merge fields or anything like that. It was just a copy and paste error. But the point is, it was not a modest introduction. So what is a modest introduction? A modest introduction is where you want to briefly introduce yourself to your audience. And what I do is I just say, hey, my name is, so we've gone through step one, so if you don't know step one, you have to watch that video. So already we're transitioning in here, and the very first thing I say is, my name is Jon, and you know, I wasn't always a guy that you would see on a cover of a fitness magazine or a guy that had six-pack abs, and I certainly wasn't always a guy that was in the pinnacle of health. Far from it. I used to be obese, and I had a heart attack, and I have 4 autoimmune diseases, and I was born with a genetic bad spoon in my mouth. Now, that's, by the way, all of that's true. All of what I just said is true, and that would be that's just, I'm not reading a script. I'm just literally, I know the story so well. I'm just telling you the story. So in a fitness book that I'm writing, I might come out and say that. That's a very modest way of introducing myself. I didn't say, hi, my name is Jon Benson. I have 4 degrees from this. I'm an expert in kinesiology. I'm this. You can say those things, but not there. You don't want to say it too quickly. Now, if you have something that's like a stellar, awesome thing, like, hi, I'm Dr. Jon Benson, that's great. My PhD was in kinesiology. That's not true, by the way. And, you know, I wasn't always. And then you go into that I wasn't always technique. I wasn't always blank. Because when you say to somebody, I wasn't always rich and famous, or I'm making this up, it wasn't always rich and famous. In fact, I used to live on the sidewalk. That makes them think, wow, if this guy can do it, I can do it. And it starts building that rapport right away. And that moves us into the section called the nightmare story. What is a nightmare story? A nightmare story is where you hit rock bottom. And in the end of the nightmare story, it follows the hero's journey, if you know that tale. The warrior's journey is another way of saying it. It's an age-old, goes back literally to the Epic of Gilgamesh. Okay, this is not anything new. I've just condensed it and made it a little simpler to follow. So when you go into this, you're going to start with, you know, I wasn't always blank. In fact, I'm going to, and this is the overview. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story about how blank happened to me and how that blank resurrected my life and put me where I am today. So, and I'll often say, so if you think you've got it bad, if you think that you've struggled with weight loss, just wait till you hear this. And then you go into the introduction. So that was just a brief overview of what I'm going to cover. I don't give away any fancy details. And the introduction part of this is very, very simple. This begins with you saying things like, you know, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was October the 7th, 1994. And me and my friend Steve were driving in a car. And by the way, there's formulas for all of this already in here. I literally tell you just stuff you can use. You don't have to use this stuff, but it gets you to think. It gets you to think. And obviously, if you click down here, you'll see there's just tons and tons of copy examples, like I keep scrolling. But the idea is to get your idea wrapped around the concept of, how do I tell a story? Great stories usually start with some sort of a factual narrative. Like it was, you know, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a very sunny day in October, and you could just, or that just makes it a very plausible story. So that's just, I like to start stories like that, and I say, and who you're with, what were you wearing, if that matters. That might not matter to your story, or it may. You know, and then you can start, when you start piecing these puzzles together, these pieces of the story element together, you can really get a good feel for how a really cool story goes. How it makes, when you're watching a movie, what makes a movie gripping? What makes a movie go beyond like a boring movie to something that grips you? This is a very simplistic and very sales-friendly version of that. So that's the introduction. You're setting up the narrative, and then you're going to get to what I call the bad part. Something bad is happening. This is where you start your downward spiral into your rock bottom moment. And by the way, if you don't have a rock bottom moment, I've yet to meet anyone who really doesn't, but let's say that you don't want to do that, like you're selling a service. Talk about the rock bottom moment of one of your clients. Look, I made this work for a dry cleaners. Just so you know, like a dry cleaner guy said, oh, there's no way I have a nightmare story. Oh, really? Because I got one for you. I just took a $2,000 suit to a dry cleaner and they ruined it. And so he used that as the nightmare story, because that happens all the time. My customers come to me and say, yeah, they ruined this very expensive clothing. And so I just helped him write a story around it. And presto, everyone was going, oh, that's happened to me. See, there's a nightmare story behind every single product or service out there. Either it's your customer's nightmare story. It could be a horrible experience they had with a hotel. Maybe you own a hotel. It could be a horrible experience they've had with weight loss. Maybe you have a weight loss book, or dating, or going down the line, finances. These are easy stories to tell. And at the end of today, I'll take any challengers. Oh, I don't have one. I've yet to fail the test. So let's see if that works. So the bad part is simply where you say, you know what? This one thing, here's what it all started. You told the story, you set it up, and you go, and this one big thing, this one bad thing was happening. My bad part was like, I started noticing that I'm going to use weight loss as an example, and I was using, in my story, is like me and my friend Steve were driving in a car. It was raining outside, and I said, I started noticing that my belt was so uncomfortable, I had to unbuckle it. And even the first button on my jeans were so uncomfortable, I unbuttoned that button. And I did it really like without Steve noticing, so he wasn't thinking I was trying to do something too strange in the car. But I was that uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable. And I started thinking to myself, I wonder if it's always going to be this way. Am I just going to keep getting fatter and fatter? So that's the bad part. That's a very short version of the bad part. Of course, there's more here, but we're just, for time's sake, we're going to go on. The really bad part has all these transitions. It's called a focal point, okay? The focal point is basically what I call the aha moment, that one thing that happened. There's always one thing that happened that made you stop and go, wait, this has to stop. And for me, it sounds like a humorous story, but it wasn't at all. In the story, I said, we pulled into a convenience store because I demanded my nightly sugar fix. And I remember pulling past, there was two I called them street hookers at the time. There were two prostitutes literally standing on the street corner, and it crossed my mind that, I'm no different than they are. We're just addicted to two different things. They were obviously addicted to drugs. I'm addicted to sugar. So I'm kind of a sugar whore. And I'm thinking to myself, that was going through my mind when I walked through I opened the front door to the convenience store. So this is all just walked you through sample slides of how this has been written over literally hundreds of VSLs. And in my story, I said I walked in and I went to get my favorite thing, which was called ding dongs, and I just changed it to donuts because a lot of people don't know what ding dongs were. And I realized I had left my wallet at my office, and I had this big coat on, and my pattern up, by the way, was I have a magic jacket that helps me lose weight. That was my pattern up. So now I'm tying back in the magic jacket. Had this big jacket on because it was cold, it was raining. And you know what? Even though the jacket, I couldn't button all the buttons, I figured, you know what? I've got to have the sugar. So I stole 4 packages of these donuts. And I was so overweight that the guy who looked at me really weird when I walked in to begin with didn't even pay me a second glance when I walked out. And I realized when I got to the car that, wow, I am no different than those girls standing on the corner. I literally am no different. My addiction is something completely different. I just stole something I'd never done before just so I could get a sugar fix. And that leads me to the Declaration of Independence. It was at that moment in my life where I said, you know what? I am going to solve this weight loss riddle even if I die trying. That was my declaration. That was my vow. I'm going to vow to figure this out. And not only that, I'm going to vow to do something even bigger, and that's the moral. I'm going to vow that I'm going to share it with as many people as I possibly can. Yeah, I never sought out to be an expert. This is what the reluctant expert is. I never sought out to be an expert in weight loss. But in that moment, I realized that if I don't do something, I'm never going to change, and I'm going to vow to figure it out. And when I do, I'm going to share it with as many people as I can. And that's exactly why you are watching this presentation today. That's a very short version of what a nightmare story is. So you take someone down into the very deep lull of and so the story is kind of gripping us because you think, my God, the guy stole. Now I come back and I say, by the way, I came back the next day and paid the guy and said, look, I took these and I'm sorry I took them, and so I didn't technically steal them except for one day, but I did borrow them. But nonetheless, that was a really humiliating story, and people they really connected with it. And when I tell the story verbally, I tell the story and you can hear it in my voice. It's emotional. My wife has a nightmare story that makes that look like a Disney fairy tale. And when she tells the story in her bikini butt product, she's crying. And that wasn't staged. She was reading the story, reading the script that she knows very well, but she started crying because the story is horrific. It's just absolutely this really ass boyfriend that she used to have humiliated her in the worst possible way in public, and we put that into the video sales there because she wanted to say, look, you think you've got it bad, just wait till you hear what this guy did to me. So she understands a woman's problems. Well, in the same way I understand a guy's problems, or a girl's problems for that matter, when it comes to I was stealing sugar. So that's what I meant by nightmare story. Now you have one, or your customer has one. And your task, your homework for today is to figure out what is that story. You can tell that story, by the way, in 5 slides, in 30 slides. It depends on how gripping it is. If it's not a gripping story, fine. Just tell a very short version of it. Here's a short version of that exact same story. You know, I remember back in October of 1997, a friend of mine, Steve, and I were driving. It was really cold outside, and I pulled into a convenience store to grab some donuts, and then I realized I left my wallet at home. And instead of in the office, and instead of driving back to the office, it was cold, it was sleeting, I decided I have to have my sugar fix, so I'm going to steal those donuts. And I did, and I hid them under my jacket. And that jacket's now become my magic jacket because I keep it to remind me of the horrible weight loss, the horrible body that I was developing for myself, and the horrible addiction that I had. But I walked right through the front door like it didn't even notice, even with all those donuts stuffed underneath me, because I was that fat. And I vowed at that moment, that was it. I'm going to find an answer to this. I'm going to share it with you. So there you go. I did that off the top of my head in, what, less than a minute? So they don't have to be long. But that particular nightmare story was like 10 minutes long because it was a great story. We just kept it in there. It's completely up to you. I give you the 10-minute version. You can shorten it to a minute. You can shorten it to less than that if you want to. So from here, we move into the transition to what is the big problem. Now that I've told you...
I have a question. So hearing these stories, and that was one of my challenges when I was writing my own, or thinking of my own story, you know, presentation on stage. What if I don't feel like my horror story is really horror? Like, I don't think that it's that bad, and do I need to add visuals or dig deeper into my soul to find like a really dark moment? Or
yeah, it's one of the most common questions that I get is like, my horror story isn't that bad. I will promise you, hold that question until the very end, because everyone's going to be asking this. Oh, not everyone, but a lot of people are going to be asking the same question, and I will use you as the case study because I don't know what your story is, but I will show you how instantly you can take. And by the way, this is what these videos do. They teach you how to pull this out. And also in where we started up here and get started, remember we had these notepad assignments. This story assignment helps you figure out your story. So when you get down here, it's not a big mystery. You can figure it out really quickly. So anyway, I will use you, Yafat, as the case study. Fair enough? All right.
No.
So she's scared.
No, guys, I'm not. Yeah, I am scared. I'm not open.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay. Then I will use. Somebody will be able to come on, and we'll be able to use them as a case study. Okay. So let's talk about the transition of the big problem. The transition is very simple. Okay. Okay. You're just going to say this. I am just like you. So if you're listening to this, certainly you know that you and I have a lot in common. I might even be worse than you. And the only difference between us is that I have a strategy. I figured out a strategy and a blueprint that actually works. That's the transition. And you know what? This system works for just about anyone who tries it. That's an inclusion statement. That's really all this part is. There's some more slides here, but that's really all that is. It's a system that really has been honed and fine-tuned over the years. I'm going to share it with you in a second. And I'm going to share with you also how it helped me shed 37 pounds of unwanted fat within about 3 months. And it's helped people lose a total of 100,000 pounds. So I can't wait to share that with you. And before I share that with you, I really need to, and I'm just clicking through here, I really need to share with you what the real problem was. Because I thought the big problem was that I was addicted to sugar, and obviously I was, but you know what? That wasn't the big problem. The big problem was much bigger than I thought. And now we're into step 3, which we will cover tomorrow. What is the big problem? So what I've done is I've gone through, I've set up a story, I've made the transition into the next step. I've opened a loop, that's what that's called, so that people are wanting to know, well, hey, if the sugar addiction isn't the big problem, and he obviously had a big-time sugar addiction, what the hell is the big problem? You know, that's going to open that loop. It's going to make people curious. And that's all I did with these last few sections. I hinted at a system. I did not use the name of the book or the name of the system. I didn't say, you know, that's why the every other day diet works so well. No. You're not selling anything yet. You're talking about a vague idea. Look, I came up with a blueprint that worked for me. And I swore that I would share it with you. And that's why I'm doing this right now. And the results of that blueprint, phenomenal. It's helped me get into the, and you could show the before and after pictures in the best shape of my life, but it's also helped many other before and after pictures get in the best shape of their lives. I'm going to tell you all about that blueprint in just a moment, but first we need to talk about what the real problem is. Why I couldn't lose the weight and why you couldn't lose the weight either. It's not what you think it is. So this is the system. It's so easy now. It's so in the head because it's all the copies in here, by the way, that I can just rattle it off the top of my head. So once you have a blueprint, as you can see, this is just the one step two. It makes copywriting much, much, much easier. The creative part of this whole element is the nightmare story, and even that can be reduced to a minute or two. So that's the only creative section in this entire part is that nightmare story. Meaning that if you want to get creative and tell a cool story, great, just follow that formula or follow a formula that you think is going to be effective. But just make sure that you include it here. That's the most important thing. Right after your introduction and before you start talking about any sort of system. That's very important. Okay, so that was step two, the vital connection. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And I'm going to come over here, and we're going to take questions. And yeah, Fat, I can't believe you chickened out on me. I was going to use you as the case study, but that's okay. I'm sure we're gonna get a case study. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a couple of questions, and then I'm going to give you the offer for the day. I'm going to give you the and a lot of people tuned in today just to watch the VSL that I've written for this. So if you guys watched it yesterday, watch it again. And then check out the final offer at the very end and see how easy it is. I'm just reading this live. I'm reading it live. And a lot of people were commenting, by the way, about how I read. So when I read, you'll notice that I will speed up at times, and then I will slow down, and I will emphasize, and then I will speed up again. That's called the vocal tonality technique. And if you look over here again, I want to show you something because a lot of people are like, well, yeah, you're a professional reader, right? No, I'm not a professional reader. I just took some lessons and I've condensed those lessons down into what we call the 3X vocal tonality technique. And that is right here, along with a lot of other bonus videos, by the way, the tonality technique video. So you watch that video, it's extremely concise, it's about 30 minutes long, and it will teach you a little system that I came up with on how to punctuate and elongate certain words, which ones you should elongate and which ones you should punctuate. Once you get good at it, you don't even need that anymore. Like I don't use it anymore because I just know it by heart. So that is coming up. Isn't that cool? So tomorrow, you're going to be here for the big problem, because when you get into the big problem, things get really fun. And the bigger solution is really fun, and the grand offer, of course, is the final day, and that is the pitch. So, Yafat, over to you. We're going to let one or two questions come in, and then I'm going to dive into the presentation, and then we'll take all your questions.
Okay, so we have a volunteer for the horror story.
Good, good. Now, hold it. I want to make sure this is someone that does not think they have one, right?
I don't know. Bradley, I don't know if he thinks he has one. He says, I volunteer for the nightmare story. It's truly a nightmare, seriously. So.
No, if you know what it is, Bradley, I can't. No, I want someone that does not think that they have one. Someone that is like, man, I like you fought. Come on, brave up. Let's use you. I can do this so quickly.
I know, but I'm like, I just don't know how. I know you are such a master of words. I am so worried that you're gonna describe my horror story so horribly that I'm gonna have nightmares about it.
No, I'll be kind and gentle, I promise. Okay, if you don't want to do it, somebody out there is going, I don't have a horror story or a nightmare story, or I don't think it's appropriate for my business. I've heard that too. Oh yeah, because your business is to aliens and the rest of us market to humans. I mean, yeah. No, it's completely appropriate. You just have to massage certain things. There are some things you'd want to like massage.
I have one. Okay, I have one that is okay. Okay. That I don't think it's a horror story. I think it's maybe okay. We can do that. We can do me.
Okay.
Do you want to do it now, or do you want to open it?
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. Then we're going to get into the.
Okay. So my horror story, I think, is that I suck at social media, and I don't know if that's that much. I suck at social media. I was never very successful with it, and I don't speak fake, so I can't do Facebook. I don't speak in 140 character, obviously, and I don't do resume, so LinkedIn doesn't work. And then I found my family in Google Plus. Now I don't know if that's in a,
That's easy.
you
My
know,
God, really?
what
That's
came out from that? Someone told me, goes like, I'm listening to you,
okay.
and I think you have issues with intimacy.
All right, here we intimacy issues. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, and why just go right to now the copy would already be in here, but I know it by heart, so I'm not going to show it to you. So here we go from the top. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to speak. I'm pretend I'm Yafet. I wasn't always known as the Google Plus queen. I wasn't always known as the go-to person to go to for Google Plus. In fact, I actually sucked at social media for a long, long, long time. In fact, I can remember this like it was yesterday. I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and we were commenting on how I couldn't write 140 character Twitter feed if my life depended on it. And yet all the social media was going by me, and I was really getting concerned that, you know what? My business is suffering because everybody's doing all this great stuff in social media, and I was just bombing at it. In fact, I tried this Facebook thing once, and oh my God, I got so much hate mail and just zero response to my offers. I thought, okay, there's just no way in hell I'm ever going to be able to do this. So I decided to actually betray my conscience, and I decided to do something I thought I would never do. I decided to post something that looked really, really spammy just to see if it would get attention. And I felt like crap afterwards because that's not who I am. I'm a real person, an ethical person. And I declared at that moment, you know what, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to figure out a solution to this if I have to die trying. The good news is that I did figure it out, obviously, because you're watching me, and I swore that I would teach it to the people that would listen, so that's fantastic. But okay, so there you go. Right. How long did that take? I mean, I did all the copies already in, all the ideas are already there. It's in a formula. So it was very easy for me to do this. Now, granted, I don't expect it to be as easy for you guys to do it right off the top, but I promise you, if you do this 2 or 3 times, it'll just roll off that easy.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
No, but
And
wasn't that a
it's
good?
true, and you were not lying. I really do suck at it. So probably if you guys can relate, come over.
See, now, okay, let me ask everyone out there, didn't that make Yafet look even more accessible? She's so accessible as she is already, but knowing that, wait, the person who's really the best Google Plus person out there didn't know jack shit about social media, and then she was failing in Facebook, and I mean, so that's what a nightmare story is. A nightmare story doesn't have to be like an existential dilemma that oh my God, I almost died or something like that. That's not what this is. All it is a fun way of telling how you got to where you got, because no one got to where you are success-wise without going through a valley. No one. Now, I don't think anyone just goes like this, right? If you do, you're kind of boring. And so, I mean, people like to hear that, I struggled too. So yeah, I can do this for anyone, and it's very, very simple to do. And just now that you guys have that video template, and you saw me do it for myself, you saw me do it for Yafet without knowing any of the details of her story. So I made stuff up because I don't know that any of that's true. But the point is that probably 80% of it is, and the other 20% she could fill in. And I went really, really fast. So I didn't elaborate on a story at all. She may have a really awesome story in there, that would take 4 or 5 minutes to share. I mean, some of the best video sales letters have long stories, have long nightmare stories. You might have a product or a service that fits that really well. Dating products fit that really, really well. Supplement products can fit that well. Weight loss products fit that well. Stuff that were financial products fit that well. So if you're in any of those fields, I mean, there's a lot of fields that fit longer nightmare stories because people really want to know that you can relate to their pain. So let me end this section by saying what we said yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. Your goal as a marketer is to make your prospect feel completely understood. And if you cannot make he or she feel understood by saying, I've been in your shoes, you've got a long, long, huge mountain to climb, or tall mountain to climb, rather, because you don't have a frame of reference. So I'm going to liken this analogy, excuse me for using fitness a lot, but that's my background, where I came from. It's like, and I talk about this in my books, it's like, who do you think you should listen to? A professional trainer who's never been fat a day in his life, who woke up this morning with abs, and woke up when he was 16 with abs, and woke up when he was 7 and noticed he had abs, or a guy that used to be obese, that figured out how to get abs over the age of 40? Who do you think knows more about you? And that is an absolute factual statement. I mean, I can't tell you how many personal trainers I know that don't know jack crap about fitness. They don't. Because they are training themselves. They're genetic anomalies, and they don't know it. And sometimes they're too arrogant to admit it. And so they think, oh, everyone should do 20 sets per body part and train 2 hours a day. That's how I got in shape. Well, yeah, that's because you're a genetic gift. 99% of the people out there aren't like that. So you should listen to the people who were not genetic gifts who figured that out. Well, the same thing is true in business. You should listen to the people who didn't succeed at first but then figured it out. It's like taking investment advice from Warren Buffett. Okay? Big picture stuff, maybe that's a good idea. Everyday guys, you don't stand a chance. I mean, he couldn't teach you anything about investment. Nor could Donald Trump teach you anything about real estate, because he was born into a family that was already a real estate multimillionaires. I mean, well, he didn't start from the ground up. He started with a silver spoon in his mouth. So you want to listen to people you want to tell the story of however it happens, whether it's a customer, whether it's a friend of yours, whether it's you. I started from the ground and I worked my way up. In that story. But then working your way up is a good story, but working your way down is so much better. Like, look, I wasn't always here. I used to be here. Man, it got even worse. And then all of a sudden you come up like this. So all story arcs go like this. All good story arcs. Look at any good movie, any good series, and tell me one series that goes like this. Just one. I'll take one. One good television show or movie that just has nothing but positive things to say. Well, I mean, you know, even Disney films have down moments. I mean, you know, and so
Talk about
that's what we're
down
doing.
moments, you know, it's like The Lion King, the dad dies, right? It's like some of the Disney movies you're like, how is it for kids? Yeah.
I never saw The Lion King, but I'll take your word for it. So I know it's true. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to show this to you. And today, there's going to be even more people that join the Accelerator family. If you didn't join yesterday and you're thinking, oh man, I lost out on all that, well, I got something for you today too. Something really, really juicy and cool. And I want to tell you, after you've been listening to this and after you've been seeing, now you saw again today, step 2 inside the Accelerator, what that would walk you through. Of course, we didn't go through all the videos because we don't have time for that. We didn't go through all the copy, but you get the gist. You get the gist of what we're going to do. So right now, a lot of people are asking the same question that they were asking yesterday. How much is this going to cost? Well, watch this short presentation and see how you can get Accelerator for free. Yes, I did say free. I know you're curious. So here's what I mean by that. Now you've seen the Accelerator in action and you've experienced a small fraction of the automated selling power that Accelerator delivers to online business owners around the globe. And now you know beyond any doubt that you're the most vital component in your marketing arsenal is your sales copy. Beyond any doubt. Every marketing pro in the world will agree with that statement. I challenge you to find one that will